storm was. So still 50-50 on whether they decide to pull on it. But the progression over time, and I'm kind of looking aloft on this, looking for that brighter pink. Yeah, not nearly as much as what we had in Houston a little bit ago. So this one, maybe 50-mile-per-hour winds on it, possibly up to 60-mile-per-hour winds. But let us know again what kind of damage you are seeing, so we can again pass that along, folks, to the Weather Service. There we go. I should have, maybe that's what was happening. The radar was trying to tell me what it thought. That's what it looks like when you have one that is high enough, strong enough, that prompts a severe warning. That pink's not as high. One here. Let's go wide and reset here for a moment. Current time is 5:55. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Law alongside our meteorologist Gainer and Caleb Edelblut, as we are tracking thunderstorms that have prompted severe thunderstorm. Those still out for southern. Unfortunately, reports of some. Looked at me a nod there on whether that video on this. There was some video from down there in Itala County. I'm looking thumb up, thumbs down on that, on whether or not we're going to have that at 6. Okay, does not look like we're going to. We're going to have to. There's some blurring to figure out. So, okay. Anyway, we'll talk about that here in a minute. Gabe, I'm going to toss to you for just a second so I can double check with Emily, and then we're going to head into the 6 o'clock show. So I'm going to head over to you on the chroma. We're going to look at the storms, Carthage, Philadelphia, very, very quickly, and then we'll talk here in just a second.
Appreciate that, Matt. And yes, Carthage and Philadelphia, one to pay attention to, really, I mean, south of Philadelphia there, where we're getting a little bit more of that hail core. You know, one of the things that we did talk about was how it had an inflow of energy directly into that storm. And so as we look at the latest there, I'm going to take it back to our regular reflectivity mode, and we're going to put this on a 1-hour loop, because you can see how that develops south Philadelphia and it continues to expand along that outflow boundary. I mean, I can see why the severe thunderstorm warning was issued, but what I'm hoping is that these outflow boundaries are starting to get out ahead of the storm, making this outflow dominant, meaning this storm will eventually collapse. The only thing is, once it collapses, strong winds are output from it. But we will see kind of a diminishing in the strength of that storm. In fact, looking at the overall coverage there, up towards Kosciuszko, sorry, just looking at some things on the overall picture, up towards Kosciuszko, we do see some of that additional development, and it is outputting some more outflow boundaries that are going to be overhead on these storms south of Philadelphia, southeast of Carthage. So these potentially increasing in strength. I know we just talked about that one south of Philadelphia. That was just looking at these 2 outflow boundaries, but with more on the way, that could allow some additional lift for these storms to perhaps go into another level of producing maybe some hail, or maybe some of those stronger winds. That True Shield Roofing hail swath, we did get some of those darker purples, but not all the way into probable. We were still possible, but we were at least trending more in that direction, meaning that these storms were at least trying to get a little bit more intense. Now, looking at storm tops, Golden Grove still putting out at about 50,000 feet on those storm tops, so we'll have to watch that as it moves towards Newton County. Speaking of, let's do one last storm track, and then we'll start our 6 o'clock show here shortly. But these don't have a ton of movement to it. Actually, let me, before we get this going, put on the latest scan. And as we drag this out, I'm going to go right along this outflow. The storms have sparked, and these storms will continue to move on through. And you see a few towns listed in there. Little Rock by 559, Lucerne by 606, Stratton 607, Hubbard by 611, Wiggins 617, Duffy 630, and I'm not going beyond that because these do enter those cyclical patterns where they intensify, they weaken, they intensify, and they weaken, and then, you know, by then, 30 minutes from now, it's going to be a completely different story. So that's what we're looking at ahead of these storms. So Matt, as we start our 6 o'clock broadcast, it is going to be one that continues to be stormy, but we're hopeful that those reports continue to remain minimal. If you have any of those reports, send it in through the Mississippi Live Weather app. But coming up, as more news and weather on the way.
Okay, and again, we'll get that going here in just a second. And for those reports, again, you can share those with us, iOS and Android devices. Certainly, it makes a difference on being able to help the Weather Service to know what is next. Mississippi Live at 6 starts right now.
Some things just go together.
Like friends and good vibes.
The perfect ribeye with a Caribbean twist.
Shrimp tacos and a hint of lime.
Unwinding after work.
Dinner with the family.
or date night with someone special.
Do you want it neat or on the rocks?
Mozzarella or pepper jack?
Whatever you choose,
Whoever you're with.
We'll be here.
Because we know
together tastes better.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 6.
Welcome into Mississippi Live Weather at 6. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. Severe weather risk is for everybody today, has been for everybody today, but it is not a widespread everybody going to get it sort of situation. I know those two things sound like they're in contrast with one another, but as we look at the severe weather risk for today, everybody's under this level 1 out of 5 risk. But the, I guess, wording below it, maybe it's small, maybe it's thin, but that's the point. A very limited number of reports, only a few reports possible over the course of this entire area. We've had a couple of those reports. Most of those have been reports of wind damage so far. We'll look at some of your video that Caleb has been looking at behind the scenes related to that coming up in a couple of minutes. But as we check out the forecast hour by hour going into this evening, I think one of the big headlines that we'll continue to have is the fact that we will probably have some gusty winds possible out of any of the thunderstorms that eventually attempt to form. So again, pop up the 6 o'clock logo and let's look at that hour by hour here for a moment, because we expect that probably, if not a little bit past the peak as far as that is concerned, with the coverage of storms diminishing by 10 o'clock, 1 a.m. and 2 o'clock in Dr. Kate. Up to things that was a report in Attala County of some damage. It's one of the things she's watching with Mississippi Live News here in a few minutes. Emily.
Speaking with the police chief there in Kosciuszko, he told me that they've had a lot of tree damage. They've had some power lines down as the winds and the storms rolled through the area. Specifically, though, on the courthouse square at the courthouse, large trees, beautiful trees around the courthouse. Unfortunately, one of knocked over a car, currently working to, I got a bug in here, currently working to be able to move that tree and get it off of the cars. The best part, nobody was hurt. But like you say, a lot of those giant trees, those strong winds come through. It doesn't take a whole lot to get them to blow over. And that is exactly what happened today, Matt.
Okay, I appreciate that, Emily. Our Caleb Edelblue is looking at an example of some of those strong winds as well that I've seen him pop up a couple times behind him there. Again, you can share your pictures with us using Facebook, all the different sources. Probably the easiest is with the Mississippi Live app. And Caleb, again, strong wind has been the story of the day.
No, that's exactly right. If we take a look at this video, you can just see almost a wall of rain kind of push through the campus of Mississippi State. They started their first day of school today, and it's always kind of typical habit that we've always had the rainy days on the first day. So that trend is continuing. But I mean, gusty winds just continue to blow across. This is just off of the drill field. I mean, camera shaking, but I mean, you could see kind of the, I guess what was pine straw kind of looking a little bare now, and the mulch just kind of blowing in the wind. So it's been gusty winds and heavy rainfall. That has been kind of the typical with those thunderstorms today. We're not dealing with anything tornadic. I want to continue emphasizing that. That is not a threat. It's just gusty winds and the potential for some flash flooding, especially with how heavy this rainfall is.
You know, and they really kind of, the reason I mentioned the flash flooding, dump it and then don't really move from there. One of the issues we've had with the storms today. In Dancy, north of Dancy here in Manti, a report a little bit earlier on of some wind damage, trees down there on Antioch Road about 4 p.m. But I mean, there's no trace that anything was really there. Even you go back to the 5 o'clock hour, and there's barely anything left from that thunderstorm there. So it's, you know, drop it and go the way it's worked in a lot of cases here. And that does mean there's been some improvement for some spots where you've been fortunate enough to not have those storms popping up there. Good example of that in West Point, where it's kind of avoided a lot of it, coming in on our FastNet camera there at 95. Well, okay, I was hoping the temperature dropped a little bit more. Maybe it hasn't dropped quite as much there as of the latest time. Over in Ackerman, where the rain showers are a little bit closer, that temperature coming in a little bit cooler at 82 degrees at this hour. Again, looking back toward the southwest portion of the county, where we do have a severe thunderstorm warning that remains in effect for locations back that direction until 6:15. So still about 10 minutes or so. As we pan this camera just a little bit, we're looking kind of west, and that's looking southwest. You can see kind of the individual sort of downbursts of rain there, indicating where those storms are back to the west. So go back over to Mama Justice Doppler radar there and sort of clear that back off. That shows up with those kind of individual. See how you have just like a bunch of kind of little isolated areas where there's rain all there. So that kind of matches up perfectly with what we saw a minute ago. I would say most of those are well below severe limits at this point, and looking at the wind potential in particular does not look super duper impressive on there as well. Our other severe thunderstorm warning down here for Carthage, Philadelphia. You know, the folks at the National Weather Service Jackson expanding that one all the way south down toward I-20 and beyond. Looking at that, again, heavy rainfall, yes. I want to get this over to the Jackson radar site here. And that shows, again, that expansion southward. There's a lot of green going on here. That's largely bugs. They're getting caught up in the rain-cooled air. That's what's kind of reflecting back. But you can see that's continuing to march southward. So along the leading edge of that could still have maybe some 50 to 60 mile per hour winds. That's why Neshoba County, as well as, again, Leake, Scott, and parts there of Newton County, all under the severe thunderstorm warnings as those storms continue to head southward. We have not mentioned the Delta much today. We've had some spotty showers and thunderstorms there, and we've continued to have some expansion back to the north and west. And that's one of the main things that you guys have commented on multiple times here is the fact that, these storms are, going different places. What about Water Valley? I see your question there, Michelle, and that's what we're going to address here as we look toward Water Valley. And so on Mama Justice Doppler radar, kind of bring that in toward Water Valley, we have a few isolated storms. Again, that's part of what we had in Calhoun County. We were looking at that Pittsburgh camera a little bit ago. Put this into motion, make this a 1 hour loop. And the cool day, this expand storms trying to pop up near you as well. See if I can click that off. There we go. No severe thunderstorm warnings with these. And at some point, again, the clock is ticking. We're going to run out of fuel for these to sort of work off of, and they will start to weaken a bit more. So let's go back to the wide shot here and kind of talk this through as we go through this evening. So expecting to have some spotty storms continuing, again, the next couple of hours, and some expansion back to the north and west. That's going to advance for me, please. There we go. And so looking ahead for this evening, one of the factors that's kind of helped in the storm development has been the fact that we've, generally had this kind of boundary that storms have kind of back-built off of, and you can see kind of the shear blowing the clouds off of this as well. This front that we have up to the north, again, a sign that we're south of that, so we're humid, we're hot, and despite heat being the #1 weather-related killer, this is the first time I'm mentioning it in this broadcast, which is kind of a shame on me situation on that, because clearly it remains hot and dangerously so. So Futurecast, next couple of hours here, still has some isolated storms out there. We go on the wider shot to show you that up here in the up in the Arkansas and Tennessee, there'll be some thunderstorms tonight. Still also could be strong to severe. You can see a lot more red up on those up closer to that frontal boundary. Those do get close up here to Memphis and up there close to the Tennessee state line. Could potentially have a couple of wind damage reports out of that as we look toward tomorrow morning, but not expected to have a lot of those around. So as we look ahead here on the hour-by-hour forecast over the first next 24 hours, we'll continue to have at least some isolated chances for some rain chances early. I think the more widespread rain chances arrive as we head toward afternoon, 30 to maybe 40% coverage, highs into the mid-90s. A little bit of a shift to the northwest with some slightly cooler, slightly drier air trying to sag in with this. That's one of the things we are hoping to get at least brief help from, but I think we're still going to have those heat advisories for a lot of spots. We'll look at that in more detail coming up here in a couple minutes, but 60 seconds away, it's Mississippi Live News with our Emily Leonard. Nope, it's not wasp apocalypse, which I do not know why the wasps. Hey, if somebody could tell me in the comments, I would love to know in the comments why Wasps love these cameras. There's gotta be a super simple explanation why. I don't know, but they've got them all over them all the time. Anyway, we won't have that answer 60 seconds from now, but Emily Leonard is going to answer a lot of other questions as Mississippi Live continues right after this.
Looking for a place to finally call home? At Tupelo Home Center, we make it easy. From finding the perfect home to making financing a breeze, we'll take care of everything. Your new home is closer than you think. Pre-qualify today at TupeloHomeCenter.com.
For years, it's been the same formula. If it bleeds, it leads. You deserve better. We are Mississippi Live. We're focused on the stories that matter to you, to your community, to your family, because local matters. We are Mississippi Live.
Friday, August 21st, don't miss the Tupelo Super Show benefiting St. Jude, featuring the legends of Memphis Wrestling. Reserve your seat right now at memphiswrestling.tv.
I think I heard Mama.
Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammo.
This portion of Mississippi Live Weather is presented by Little's Jewelers.
Hey everyone, good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us here on Mississippi Live. I'm Emily Leonard. Lower score, bigger savings. Northridge subdivision just got a better fire rating. Lee County Emergency Services Director Mark Flanagan says the area went from a class 10, essentially ungraded, and went all the way down to a class 7. That's a big jump. And that means residents who live there could see their insurance costs drop anywhere from 25% to 30%. And that's a lot. Flanagan says 2 more county districts are still rated class 10. He expects those to improve as well. One side effect, though, remember the brown water from the North Lee Water Association? Well, that low water pressure caused that discoloration, but North Lee Water Association has since flushed those lines. Monroe County's trash transfer station is getting bigger and it's getting stronger, so hopefully it'll last a lot longer. A $2.3 million refurbishing project set to wrap up this week, paid for through state and federal funds. Taxpayers, you guys did not pay for this. The floor space nearly doubling what it was, giving the crews more room to handle the trash before it gets shipped off to the regional landfill in Pontotoc. Officials say the upgrade saves on fuel and it saves on manpower, letting one 18-wheeler haul what used to take multiple smaller trucks more trips. If you live in the county, you can use this station to get rid of your household waste. Nothing hazardous, though. The project's part of a larger $7.5 million regional effort covering 7 counties. Officials say this could last anywhere from 20 to 30 years. 2 wellness rooms are now available for students and staff at Itawamba Community College. Breathe. Can you feel it? They're in the John Krubaugh Educational Building on the Fulton campus, with more planned for the Tupelo campus. And as you can see, they're very zen. One room focusing on relaxation and sensory support with zero gravity chairs, weighted blankets, and noise-canceling headphones. The other promotes mindfulness through journaling, puzzles, and Zen gardens. Those never make me very sane, but maybe they do for some people. They say the goal, though, is really simple, just supporting mental well-being so the students and the employees can have success, both personally and academically. The rooms are open now to the current students and ICC employees. Everyone take a deep breath. Thank you so much for joining us here on Mississippi Live. I'm Emily Leonard.
Right now, from the Mississippi Live Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Laubheim.
You're watching Mississippi Live here at 6. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lopon. Despite what that lower third says, not Emily Leonard. There we go. That's my information. Appreciate her again for all the hard work she's been doing on news today. You can see our warning there in parts of Kosciuszko, stretching southern Montgomery County here back into what we got here, Carroll County as well. This is rather unimpressive in the last 20 minutes. This has gone on the downswing there for a lot of spots. So getting a little bit weaker and hopefully improving things somewhat. But there are some power outages continuing to show up there. Our Caleb Edelbluth has been tracking those back in our Tupelo studios with more. Caleb?
Yes, unfortunately, we're still dealing with power outages. Atala County comes in, unfortunately, the most impressive in a bad way, and that's with over 1,000 outages, so they're up to 15% of the county out of power, and most of those are coming out of our central EPA, where they're dealing with quite a few outages. 341 you can see here, the most prominent just north of Kosciuszko. You see another batch of 84 further on south along the county line, 32, 56, so dealing with quite a few outages. We can also look at Entergy. This is another company that carries for Atala County, and you can see kind of this, honestly, entire neighborhood kind of cluster out of power with this purple icon showing that this is one of the latest ones to develop, but dealing with some of these outages. So 21 customers affected with that symbol here. You can see 6 outages affecting 335 customers in the most southwestern portion of the county. So Atala continues to be hit the hardest. We can also take a look back here towards our Natchez Trace EPA. I know this was one that Gabe was taking a look at a lot earlier. We're starting to see less color. That continues to be a positive as you guys were dealing with some of those stronger thunderstorms, even some more kind of popping up within the past few minutes, not quite reaching that severe criteria. But thankfully, we are starting to see some of those outages kind of on the decline as we head into the evening. And if we wanted to kind of get specifics here, we're down to 312, which I think that was unfortunately the last number that we had within that specific outage area, but we don't have that yellow kind of showing the 50 to 99 customers affected anymore. If we were to highlight the red, that's around 210. And these teal areas, let's see if I can do it without looking at the monitor, 41, this is just a little bit easier, 18, and then 37. So you guys still dealing with some outages, but I know the EPAs, they're already out and about getting that back on for you guys. Another area I want to highlight really quick, Noxubee County, you guys really dealing with some of those outages. I know some of you guys have been commenting about it in the comments, just letting us know that that thunder has been rumbling and when that power has gotten knocked out, and we actually just saw some of those icons disappear. So that's what we're really wanting to see throughout the rest of the evening as these outages can hopefully start decreasing more and more. We're not seeing more kind of go offline, especially as that sun continues to set and that fuel starts to get kind of eaten up by more of these storms and just cut off once we get that daytime heating out of here.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. That's what we want. I mean, we need the rain, but I think we don't want everything else that goes with it. Our meteorologist, Caleb Edelbluth, there in our downtown Tupelo studios reporting. So Winona, again, some showers close to you there. Water Valley, we talked about earlier. Strongest, though, here south of Carthage, south of Decatur. Again, this grouping, the actual storms themselves, kind of moving from the northwest back toward the south and east there. A lot of heavy rainfall, some lightning to go along with those as well for some of those spots. And then another one popping up close to the forest there. Some of our cameras down here. We'll check out the forest camera, and then we'll look up Philadelphia and Carthage here for a brief moment. These, again, partnered with our folks there at Max South Broadband on some of their towers down there. 99, the heat index, that feels like temperature there in forest, still awaiting that thunderstorm getting a little bit closer there. Philadelphia, it's kind of the leftover stuff like a lot of folks have seen there. 81 the temperature. Man, I would definitely tag in on that. And then Carthage coming in right now at 81 degrees, feels like 88 as well. Back over on Mama Justice Doppler radar, you know, these storms there, as I check our True Shield roofing hail threat, not over the top, not overly impressive. And I'd say that kind of qualifies for everything. This is down a lot more over the last few hours. You will notice some of the tree sort of icons here, a sign of where we've had some of the wind damage reports. If you have more to submit with us, you can use the Mississippi Live app. Probably the best way to do that. Weather Service can see that right away if you send it in the app as well. And we'll expand, there we go. Last scan, you can kind of also see there's that rain cool there expanding up into Tupelo, Pontotoc, locations northward with that as well, as that gradually kind of moves on out of here. So we're past the peak of storms, and it'll start going down a little bit more from this point forward. So hour by hour forecast on our day planner here, continuing to show, again, some spotty chances for some isolated storms next couple of hours. 81, that temperature on the average by 11. 79 is looked toward around 2 o'clock in the morning. So the weekend forecast, expecting us to be probably a 95 for the high on Saturday, 94 Sunday. I think we're still going to have maybe a limited chance for a couple of showers and thunderstorms. First part of the weekend, drier air starting to move in. So that chance for rainfall hopefully diminishing. So, I mean, I can't rule out storms, but certainly the next couple of days where they are more likely. And those mid-90s, drier heat is eventually on the way. And we'll talk about that with Gabe coming up here, Gabe and Caleb, in a few minutes. So on Futurecast, again, those spotty storms, pretty decent positioning here on where it has a few of those out there. You'll notice by 7 o'clock, still a few, but even by 8 o'clock, how a lot of those go away. Again, losing the heating of the day, sun going down. That's the reason that's the case. Midnight, after that, we're in good shape as well. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, though, a few storms up to Tennessee, up not that far north of the Tennessee state line. And not impossible, these have a couple of strong wind gusts as well with them. 76 that low in New Albany, be 78 degrees in Holly Springs, 79 Cleveland, 75 degrees Kosciuszko, Louisville, Eupora also coming in at about 75 degrees, and what are kind of some partly cloudy skies. So after starting off in the middle 70s, we're going to make our way into the mid 90s by afternoon. Additional thunderstorms possible tomorrow, 30, maybe 40% coverage on our IMPC school bus forecast. So don't be shocked if most of us don't have it, but some of us will be picking the kids up in rain and in some cases storms. I want to emphasize that we are not talking about a tornado threat out of this for our area, thankfully. So front, you can kind of see the offshoots of that, kind of a boundary of sort of a rain development kind of running just a little ahead of our front there, depicted here on Futurecast. So bring it back in a little closer to show that front. It's not a big contrast in temperatures, but just a little bit cooler behind that. At 3 o'clock, we have a couple, like what we depict there over top of Tupelo. Notice we have a 5 to 6 o'clock. It's not an everybody thing, and this is a much lower quantity than what we showed you at 5, as models are kind of catching up here. A few more into Arkansas at that point that could eventually cross the state line. So high temperatures tomorrow, some neighborhood of the upper 90s to near 100. Case scenario, maybe some lower 90s, but in most spots never feel anywhere near that cool. Or again, 103 to 105 for the heat index. Dangerous heat. You know, I did a live hit for Fox Weather earlier today talking about the heat with Haley Meyer, Stormy Meyer, that used to be on with us over at the TV station. And we were just talking about, you know, how blisteringly hot it is, and honestly, how it's easy to get lackadaisical about it. When you hear about it every day, it's like, I get it, it's hot. But here's the deal, that heat injury risk remains extreme in the Delta for your Thursday, sporadically extreme across North Mississippi, a little bit of a reprieve near the Tennessee state line. But unfortunately, when we revisit that for our first Friday night football game of the week in Jamboree mode here, we'll talk about that in more detail in a minute, but it does look as though we could have obviously some extreme heat conditions again for Friday afternoon. Now, starting off without that, only some spotty storms the far northeast corner of the state and northwest Arkansas there for some spots out that direction. But majority of those remain pretty limited in overall coverage there. So as we look into your Friday, low temperatures in the morning, starting off in the lower 70s. Here's a look again at Futurecast showing some of those showers and thunderstorms continuing to kind of expand eastward. Not a lot showing up at noontime. We're going to change this over to our strike model, which has a few more in the afternoon. You can see generally that flow northwest to southeast. 1:30, 2 o'clock, it's not that big a deal. Of course, we know that folks are going to be concentrating on football time. And by, say, 3 to 4, we still have some of those isolated storms kind of popping up and around out here, and possibly a few of those continuing into the evening. But before 4:30 and 5, we've seen that diminish. So fingers crossed that we end up dry for those games. Highs on your Friday, middle to upper 90s once again. Again, in some cases, same story, different verse. But one of the things we had in the last graphic is we had that front kind of nudging into the area. Here's how that impacts us. That heat index more manageable, still hot, but more manageable up near the Tennessee state line, maybe only slicing off a degree or two foot, it feels like. Still obviously dangerous heat out there. We'll still have heat advisories for most spots, but maybe just a little bit of an improvement for a couple. That wet bulb globe temperature here, or again, heat injury risk, is something that will continue to be up near the extreme levels again on Friday at 3 p.m. Now, obviously, by evening time, that makes a difference. I have not heard from Gabe or Caleb or Ethan on whether or not they are going to think about maybe pushing the start of these games back a little bit or having some other kind of hot weather with those. Let me know in the comments. We'll pass that along to folks there who are watching us as well. But it's not impossible that there might be some hot weather rules that kind of come into effect with this as well. So let's look at the 7-day forecast here. 40% on that coverage of storms for your Thursday, 20% as we look toward Friday. Saturday, we're looking at mid-90s out there, as well as Sunday. Hopefully drier for the weekend. Rain chances at 0, but we are pushing in a lot drier air that definitely makes a bigger impact by the latter part of the weekend. Unfortunately, this is Mississippi in summer. There's always a little moisture somewhat close, so some of those rain chances start coming back as we look toward Tuesday and Wednesday of next week in particular. 60 seconds from now, we're looking at Mama Justice Doppler radar. I think we might have a new warning that has come out in the last couple of moments. We're going to check that out right after this.
I have been going to Tupelo Smiles my whole life. When I was a kid, I was unhappy about some uneven coloring on my teeth after getting my braces off, which at the time there really wasn't a fix. I was recently made aware of a solution that would totally fix it, which is exactly what we did. They not only heard my concerns, but they never stopped looking to solve my problem, and that's why I love Tupelo Smiles.
For years, it's been the same formula. If it bleeds, it leads. You deserve better. We are Mississippi Live. We're focused on the stories that matter to you, to your community, to your family, because local matters. We are Mississippi Live.
So new severe thunderstorm warning issued here just on the really southern fringe of the area we cover. I don't know that we're going to necessarily go nonstop on this here, but we do have that, again, south of I-20. Again, all of the traditional coverage area, really the northern portion here, no warnings, and it's unlikely we'll see additional that come out for you. I'll look at about the only spot that maybe I can make an argument here. And even then, this is not impressive on this one you have up here toward Pine Valley. There's some lightning on it. Not a lot of lightning, and our True Shield hail swath has virtually nothing on that part of the thunderstorm. The purple stuff you have out there east is where we previously had storm. There's none left for those spots there. So as we slide southward here, again, we're looking south toward Forest and locations down to the west of Bay Springs. That's where these storms are a little bit stronger. Using the 3D version here of Mama Justice Doppler radar. Check. I think this is... Survey says, I don't know why that's not behaving right today. That, for one reason or another, that is not playing along. So we're just going to go the backward way to do it. Seems to have worked. And these are not nearly as tall. I'll switch it down to our radar down from Jackson just in case. Yeah, I mean, there's some spots down here, again, where we could get some damaging wind, but, we're looking all the way down to practically Laurel there as well. And in these cases, I think damaging wind remains the main tornado risk out of this, and honestly, not much of a hail risk, all things considered. Checking that True Shield hail swath, not really showing up with a significant number of locations with that. So I'm going to check with Gabe and Caleb here for a moment. I think we'll probably toss down to the studio here for a minute to do a little bit of additional coverage down here. I wonder if I can pull up a 3-box. 3-box actually has everybody where they're supposed to be. There's almost no way I have the correct 3-box configured here. I've got 2 of the 3. Give me a minute and I'll pull up Gabe at the chroma. Oh, I might not be able to do that. And we might be stuck with this. I'll worry about that later. Okay, but I'll have Emily in this shot here. So Emily, just so you know, you're in this shot that we're going to pop up here in a second. Just to double check with everybody to see if we can transfer coverage. So Emily, you're gonna have to hop up there. There we go. Okay, so any new reports that any of you guys have gotten?
I have not gotten any. And you
No, just trees down, lines down, Starscape. No.
It's a 4-box
No?
modified.
Yeah.
It's 3.5. 3.5. Okay. Well, these new warnings down south. I mean, has there been any? We had Kosciuszko, obviously. Has there been anything down outside of that? Because I haven't seen Jackson really talking about it. They're putting a bunch of things in there, but I have not seen a lot of reports farther south.
I have yet to see any. Looking behind the scenes, and even, I mean, you can pull up the pictures real quick to see if we have any more submissions. But no, I think things are trending in the right direction, needless to say, but have not got any confirmed reports just yet. It's just boundaries doing what boundaries do. And I think because they were a little bit more impactful earlier on, they're putting that as a precursor to keep folks safe out ahead of these boundaries.
Okay. So I guess that's good to keep that in line, make sure everybody's ready to go with that. I appreciate that, Gabe and Caleb. I was trying to bleep Emily. There we go. So I get your attention back up. I promised I was going to come to you at some point.
You did.
I did. It worked.
It did work. It did work.
Well,
now,
got
what do you
news
want?
9 and
That's the
10.
question.
I want to know about 9 and 10 news.
Yeah. Well,
every night this time I ask this
forget.
question.
No, I didn't forget. Every night. You know what? With all of the storm coverage, I'm not going to lie. I'm a little messed up on exactly what time it is. To tell you the truth, I'm a little thrown, but that's okay. Another expansion announced in Columbus. This time, a very large expansion. Aurora Sciences Space in Flying. They expanded to the tune of like $43 million. A lot of big wigs down there today. Senator Roger Wicker, the governor, Trent Kelly, they were all down there cutting the ribbon on that. So we'll have that coming up for you a little bit later on. Also, it is very possible that we, and I say we as in North Mississippi, are now home to the oldest cow in the world. I'll leave it at that.
Is it a holy cow?
Did you hear me? Well, no, it's an old cow, but not a holy cow. He might be holy. He may be praying to the Lord. He lives another year.
Oldest things tend to do that. Or I think oldest things sometimes, I don't know. I don't ever want to be the oldest person on earth. I think by the time we get to that point, I'm just ready for God to move me on. Because if I were the oldest, that would mean you wouldn't be here with me. Anyway, that's a different discussion. Anyway, let's get off that topic. I'm not going to think about that.
Yeah, let's move on to
That
a
will never
different
happen.
topic. But yes, lots of news coming up a little later on at 9 and 10. Yeah, mumble to yourself. I'll bleep you too.
I deserve to be bleeped in that situation. Appreciate that, Emily. Okay, Gabe, let's get off of me because clearly I'm not to be trusted. I was trying not to call her old.
We were
What can
sitting
I
back
say?
here in the studio so uncomfortable. It's like, I really hope he doesn't come to me next.
Good luck.
Oh, joy. Gotta love it. Yeah, we've been doing severe coverage a lot the past couple of days, so it's good that things are winding down, or at least starting to trend that way. Severe thunderstorm warning still in effect there for Newton County, as well as over here towards Scott County, and that does extend along 35 a little bit more south into Smith County, and then over towards the Jasper County area as well. Reason why? It's the same outflow boundary as it's worked its way south, and that's what we are going to track here. So as we do that 1 hour loop, you know, the outflow towards Neshoba and Leake County a little bit earlier on now, and allowing there in Forest seeing some heavy downpours as a result of that boundary. So as we put on that latest scan, one thing that I want to do is count time of boundaries because of where we could see that severe. We go on that latest scan there. I'm going to use one of the boundaries, and we're going to drag this out. Speed faster, 13, 14, maybe even up to 15 miles an hour. Back to our regular, and let's do an entire track on this as it moves down there towards Newton County or southern Newton County next few moments, and then eventually Smith and Jasper County here short. So say 15 miles an hour as that continues to kind of there a little bit further south. We're Liberty by 6:35 frame 6:8 my apologies. Tango 2 5 6:46 8 on by Sun. Let's we get the updated location just so that way we can make sure we hit every city that we can. Forest 6:45 7. We're tracking here as well. It is the boundary. And we've been saying, well, don't take it past about 30 minutes because it's going to change. With boundaries, those usually hold up pretty well and are pretty consistent as they move south. Now, it does not mean that the entire area between and Morton and down there towards Bay Springs are going to see thunderstorm development. But within that boundary is where that potential lies, and potentially some of those getting on the stronger side as well. So we're right along I-20 with that boundary. So Forest dealing with those heavier downpours. You know, I might have to, no, I don't have to manually pull it up. We have a large enough map to where we can go on that storm because it's not too far away. And this would be, yeah, looking right into that storm there. And once again, you see that blinding rainfall. And again, I'm concerned a lot about the blinding rainfall because this is over I-20 where it's 70 miles an hour between Jackson and Meridian. And so if you're this evening or maybe travel off to any of those midweek services, just be mindful of that and give it some time to pass on through because we don't want to get caught in the middle of this. And as we track this out, one of the things that I'm going to do for us is measure it. And I want you to see that if we give it just a couple of minutes, give it 3 miles to pass on by. What is this moving? 15 miles an hour, so 60 divided by 5 is roughly 12. So give it about 12 minutes and this will pass all the way through along I-20 and we'll be good to go. So that's a little something we can look forward to, and there's also some math for your midweek plans. Students, there's your homework. So that's looking in Forest. That's the thunderstorm that's starting to get a little bit more impressive, but even then, if we look at our True Shield roofing hail swath, not getting us an impressive signature on that. And if we look at our wind mode here, more impressive along the boundary, not necessarily within this storm. So while a microburst potential is there, I still think we're a bit of a ways from that. I think the National Weather Service put a warning because of what these storms have done a little bit earlier on. And speaking of earlier on, let's bring it back to our North Mississippi area. I want to make sure that we're not missing out on anything up here, and we are not. Things continue to look much calmer than where we were a little bit earlier on today. And while the reports are there of some of the wind damage, it is coming on the impacts compared to what we saw earlier on. So I do want to pull up a 12-hour rainfall forecast. I'm going to pull off the alerts for a second because where these storms happen, they really allowed a lot of rainfall to just dump on a large part of North Mississippi. We can see about 2 inches there in northern Natala County, a few spots where you're seeing 2 inches around Calhoun County. That was by the Bentley community. Bruce getting a few as well, and additional rain chances already overhead. Louisville seeing some heavy downpours just east of Meridian. That was a heavy downpour in and of itself. That was up to about 4 inches in spots. So some localized flash flooding, that remains a possibility on top of that severe weather risk getting into tonight and into our Thursday. So be mindful of the forecast. That's why we keep encouraging, download that Mississippi Live Weather app. While it was sunny and hot over the weekend and we didn't have to worry about storms at all, we've changed the pattern and things are going to be a little bit more action-packed over the coming days. That day 2 risk encompasses all of North Mississippi and Northwest Alabama, and breaking down those individual risks. Wind and hail going to be the primary threats there. We're not expecting tornadoes. It's just not exactly in that season, fortunately, but we can see impacts whether the winds are twisting or straight line, and straight line remains a possibility for our Thursday. So as we push it back down south, we can see that severe thunderstorm warning. In fact, we have another outflow boundary. Are you shocked? This one moving close to Highway 49. This would be along Taylorsville and down south just west of Laurel. That's allowing for some of that development to take place. Watch that loop there. So the outflow boundary actually jutting off of this storm down there towards the Laurel area. And as that kind of expands north and northwest, there's your outflow boundary. More outflow boundaries out here towards Mendenhall. These clashing together, trying to provide some additional development once again. So that severe thunderstorm warning, while we're not expecting a ton of reports out of it, it could still see some strengthening over the next couple of scans. Now, Caleb, I know that you've been monitoring power outages. Do you have any updates on those?
I did.
Okay, let me toss over to you so that way you can bit more about that.
Yes, I wanted to actually had another update saying that there was a delayed report of power lines down between Moshulaville and Macon, and that was around 3:30 on Haynes. So still seeing reports come in, but thankfully these are from storms earlier on right now. So if we had to get any reports come in, we'd all appreciate it if that was from earlier and not what's currently ongoing. We don't want to see that. But taking a look at those power outages right now, one of the things I hit at last time was Atala County being hit the hardest, coming in at 15% of the county out. We're at 11.66, so we're already seeing some of you guys' power come back on. EPA is doing a fantastic. We're starting to see these outages a little bit more centralized, and that's due to those thunderstorms continuing to dig further and further south, southeast in our viewing area, causing those power outages. So central Mississippi continuing to get hit pretty hard. In fact, we could take a look kind of for you guys out there towards Union, Philadelphia, Kosciuszko, Carthage. I mean, 648 kind of within that, I guess, shaded area. So still seeing these power outages continue to climb, unfortunately, but to be expected with these thunderstorms and just a cyclic nature that they have, and these not downbursts, but potential for some of these gusty winds as it drops everything it has in store. But another good thing that I wanted to point out is this was one we've been monitoring a lot lately. For Knoxville County, you guys have seen quite a few outages and getting closer towards the Macon region. But one thing, and I'll have to move it over here so you guys can see, if we pull up that chart and when we kind of take a look at those outages, those spikes, you're on how they quickly climb, but we start to see you guys come back online pretty quick. So this is not ice storm power outage times whatsoever. In fact, you can already start to see that decline in a good way of those outages becoming less and less frequent, or at least starting to come back online, county EPA customers. So that continues to be a good sign. 868 are affected right now with 48 total outages. So I'm gonna have to jot that down in my brain to see if next time we come back online, whether or not those continue to decrease, but it continues to be very positive, starting to see that downward trend on outages in general, but also starting to see you guys kind of come back online fairly quickly. So let's go back up towards the Natchez Trace. This is another one that we've been looking at a lot lately. It was pretty colorful. Let me switch this back over so you guys can see what I'm looking at. There we go. We're still talking about, I believe it's 328, 312. There we go. So even better. We're still talking about quite a few outages out there within that kind of purple